G'day folks, Andy here from McDowall Manor. So we're under stage 2 of the home distilling video series, and this will be in fact about distillation. So what I'm looking at there, it's a week after the previous video. I had a product called Turbo Clear. It's finings. If you just mention the phrase for finings, people in the homebrew shops will know what you're talking about. Part A here goes in, then about an hour later it just pours straight in the top of your fermenter. Then about an hour later we hit it with part B. So what finings is about is settling all of the sediment to the bottom of the fermenter. So you can see from that little airlock on the top, the bubbling's completely stopped. Usually stops in about 2 or 3 days, and we're about to put the finings in. Okay, so I don't do anything tricky here. Just pour it pretty much straight in. I've snipped the top of that obviously. Straight in like that. Don't stir it, any of that. In an hour's time I'll come back, I'll pour the second part, satchel B in. Not going to bother showing you that, and then we'll just leave it for another 24 hours. So it's the next day. Actually it's the next night, if I was being completely honest. You can't really see on the video, but the sediment has definitely settled in that fermenter. So we're about to put the contents of that fermenter over here into, holy guacamole, it's big, into that still, using that jug. So I use that jug to get most of the liquid out. I just pour it in, but the bloody thing's too heavy, so I tend to get most out, and then we'll pour the rest in. So I'll give you a look at that as we go along in various bits and pieces. So everything's in position. I've taken the lid off the fermenter. There's the fermented brew in there. Beautiful, eh? I'll give you a look down. I've got the lid off the still. So I'll give you a look down in there. That's just a heating coil. So what happens is that heats up. Of course, alcohol turns to vapour at a lower temperature than water, and so it does that. It rises up in that riser pipe, and it comes out this little pipe here. But I'll show you all that later when we've got it in position. We're going to start. Sorry about the background noise, folks. That's Rosie making ice cream, believe it or not. But anyway, you can see I've removed all that liquid down to that bottom line there, just above the tap. That was done with the jug. Stirred things up a bit, but not over much, not terrible much. And in here you can see now, that's where the bulk of the liquid is. We'll actually get probably, well, you can see with that mark there, that's where we normally fill to. So I'm going to tip that in now because it's easier to manage now that most of it's gone. I obviously can't show you that because I'm doing it and I can't hold the camera at the same time. Stirred that up a fair bit because I wanted you to see it. That's the sediment. So you can see it is kind of pretty thick and yucky down there. And we'll clean that out soon. I pour in very slowly and gently, so exactly that sort of mixing doesn't happen by accident. And that's in fact good to be lidded up now, so I'll show you that. So there it is set up. The lid's back on. It goes down with one of those sort of tie strap metal lids. There's the outflow. It'll go into our demijohn there. They call those 4-litre bottles. Show the other side, it's a bit more interesting. So one pipe is attached to the tap. We're going to run cold water through that. It'll go up here and into the riser column. Now that provides a cooling mechanism, so it runs cool water through the column. That keeps the column at a lower temperature than certainly the rest of it, which is what causes the gaseous form of the alcohol to move from vapour back into a liquid, and then it runs out that tube there into this bottle. 100 ml is thrown away. That's really, really important. If there's any methanol in there, it comes out in the first 100 ml, because it goes at the lowest temperature of all before the ethanol does. So you always get rid of your first 100 ml. You've seen in the fermenting one video that I used sugar. There's no pectin or very limited pectin in there, so when we still it, it won't make, well, it shouldn't make methanol. So I've actually turned this on now. In 45 minutes time I'll come back and I'll start to run the cold water tap, and we'll show you that. Now this would waste an awful lot of water. It just runs out of that pipe. Where the hell's the end of it? There it is. Runs out of that pipe and would go down that sink. Rather than do that, I actually combine this stage with my cleaning stage. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So I'm going to clean the fermenter as I go, using the water that I would otherwise waste from the still. So I'll come back when I've set that bit up. So I've cleaned that out by hand. There's usually, where that handle is there, there's usually a sort of sediment smudgy line all the way around. I just give that a rub with the water coming out the outlet pipe when I turn it on. So she's nice and clean down in there now. What we're about to do, let me introduce you to two products that we'll use to clean this little fella. The first one is a product called Egger. It's a cleaner, so think of it as a kind of industrial strength detergent. And then this little guy here is the sterilizer. So we'll clean it, we'll put the Egger in there and we'll leave that sit for 2 hours. Then we'll rinse that out with fresh water and then we'll put the sterilizer in. I leave that overnight, that's what I tend to do, and then I just let it drain away. You don't rinse after that one obviously because it's a sterilizer. So there's a dessert spoonful of Egger in the fermenter. And over here there's a little bit that I've sprinkled, wouldn't even be a teaspoon, wouldn't even be half a teaspoon. I've sprinkled in the lid. I tend to do it at the same time just to make sure everything's nice and clean. So we're going to fill that baby up now with water. As mentioned, I've just turned the tap on. So we've got water coming out the bottom there. And that'll froth that Egger up. And a nice sudsy soapy mix. Is good value. I might show you, there's a digital thermometer on these babies that comes out the very top of our riser, and what we do is we keep that little fella at 76 degrees, which allows then that alcohol to take liquid form from vapor and run into our little bottle. So I'm running the water in there. I've filled the lid up, you can't see, but it's full of water with that little bit of Egger in there. Now I don't actually need to be running the water at the moment. You don't actually have to turn the water on to cool that rising pipe until 45 minutes into the process. Now I'm only about 5 minutes into the process. Remember I said I combined my cleaning, the fermenter phase with the distilling phase. Probably could have put them in two separate clips, would have made more sense to keep the processes separate for you. But that's not how I do it, so I figured I'll show you how I do it. So the fermenter's full. I've turned the water back off now because remember we don't need to turn it back on until 7:30, which is 45 minutes from when we first turned the power on the distiller. So there's that water running out of the outlet there. It's been about 15 minutes, 20 minutes since I turned the water back on. Nothing's happening as yet, but when it does, it tends to happen very quickly. So we'll have to be prepared for a bit of action soon. Okay, Houston, we have progress all of a sudden. Remember I said it happened suddenly. So it went from 19 to 40, she's up to 48 right now. Let's watch it jump up again. 57, look at that. Okay, the magic of it all happening. Sorry about the noise of the dryer, but I can't turn that off right at this moment. We're on 63, the magic happens at 76, folks. We're on 63, she jumps in about 10-degree lights by the look of it. Oh no, that made a bloody liar of me, didn't it? Good on you. 67, so around about 75, 74 she'll start to dribble. What we want to run at is 76. Come back over here. And it's on 71 still. Oh, there she goes. Look at that, on 73. We started to dribble. Now, fair chance if there's any methanol, it will be in here now. It's still 74, so that means I've got the water on at about the right rate. Let's have a little look at how much is coming out. I'll just grab that for you. So you can see it's not a terrible lot. You know, you don't turn your tap on much. Doesn't feel excessively hot just yet either. So that's saying 75, it'll jump up again. And we're just slowly dribbling it out. And then we'll replace that test tube with its damage on again, so things are back to normal. And all will be good. After that, you pretty much leave it alone. As you can see, there's not a lot to this. It's not a lot of work is what I really mean. You do things in 3, 5 or 5 minute bursts, then you walk away, you know, for at least a half hour or an hour. Once your feed income starts to ferment, I pretty much walk away for about 2 hours. That's running at a fairly stable 78 degrees. I work anywhere between 76 and 79. If it goes above 79, turn the water up. If it goes below 76, turn the water down. There you can go. You can see by now at this stage we're getting a nice steady run. So that 100ml will be down the sink pretty soon. Yeah, there's that fairly nice steady stream of pretty much, that should be around about 90% proof alcohol running into there. That previous 100ml you saw in the little test tube is down the sink. Past the laundry every so often, I mean the distillery. What you might want to do is just check your temperature, check the output, make sure everything's going hunky-dory. You wouldn't go out and leave this in case you had a bloody explosion, quite frankly. So at about 8:45, which is 2 hours after I filled that fermenter, I'm going to put that outlet pipe back in that fermenter to start the rinse it out process. So what you can see there is I'm draining the fermenter, and then we'll use the outlet pipe to rinse it twice before finally filling it again with the sterilizer. Okie dokie. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the distiller is running 79, a little warm. If it goes any higher, I'll turn the water up. I don't think it will, it'll drop. And you can see we're getting now a healthy amount of alcohol. So things are looking good, folks. Okay, so it's still running pretty nicely. What time is it? 10 past 10. Nice stream of alcohol there. She's stable at 78. I've used the egger as a cleaner. I've emptied that out then, filled it with water, emptied it out, rinsed it twice. I've then added the disinfectant, the sterilizer, and filled that again, so that'll sit there until tomorrow. I've done the same with the lid, the spoon and the airlock. Yeah, the airlock's down, oh there you are, down the bottom there. They've been done as well. I've done a few bottles that I use for jams at the same time, they're over there. So while that temperature's stable and that stream of alcohol pouring out of there is pretty solid, I'll let this continue. Okay, so what we're seeing now, it's 10:33. That's a very erratic flow. Surprised the temperature's not jumped more, but she's 77, was running around 79. Normally I don't worry too much about 1 or 2 degrees fluctuation, but given the slowness of that alcohol output, that's us for the night, folks. I'm about to turn this baby off, and we'll be done on distilling